So, today we're going to dive into a software development model that's all about one thing: building better and building faster. It's a whole philosophy that puts speed and flexibility right at the center, so you can deliver what people actually want, right when they want it. Welcome to the world of RAD, or Rapid Application Development.
Okay, let's kick this off with a question I'm pretty sure we've all asked ourselves at some point. Have you ever been so excited to download a new app, only to open it up and it just feels clunky, or like it's already a step behind what you really need? Yeah, that feeling? That's the exact problem that rapid application development was designed to solve. Now, to really get why RAD was such a game changer, we have to take a quick look at the world it came from. And that brings us to our first section, the need for speed and what was so wrong with the old ways of building software. For the longest time, software development was dominated by these really traditional models, and the most famous one was called the Waterfall model. The biggest issue with them? They were incredibly slow and super rigid. The market could be changing on a dime. Users would be asking for new things, but the development plan? Nope, that was locked in stone.
Think of it like this. You're building a house with a single, unchangeable blueprint. Everything is decided up front: every wall, every outlet, every window. But what happens if, halfway through building, you realize you put a window in the totally wrong spot? Well, with that old model, moving it would be a disaster. Huge delays, massive costs. Software was stuck in that exact same trap.
So, faced with these rigid, unchangeable blueprints, the industry was screaming for a new way to build. And that leads us straight to the solution: the introduction of the RAD model, a much faster, way more flexible path forward. So, what is RAD, really? Well, at its heart, it's a model that's obsessed with speed and making the user happy. And the way it does that is by focusing on building quick, working models, prototypes, and then constantly tweaking them based on real feedback, all while keeping the end user in the loop from start to finish.
Let's break down what makes RAD tick. First off, it's super iterative, which just means you build in these short, repeated cycles. It also absolutely requires continuous user involvement. They're not just a client, they're basically a teammate. And, maybe most importantly, it's all about building working prototypes instead of writing mountains of paperwork. The goal is simple: speed and efficiency.
So, if the old way was that rigid blueprint, RAD is much more like sculpting with clay. You start with a basic shape. That's your first prototype. You show it to the user, they say, maybe a little different here, and together you rapidly reshape it. You keep doing that over and over until you've got a masterpiece. It's totally collaborative and incredibly flexible.
Okay, so we know what it is, but how does it actually deliver on that promise of speed? Well, that brings us to the engine room of the whole model, the 4 phases of RAD. The whole process breaks down into a really clean 4-step journey. You've got requirement planning, then the super important user design phase, then construction, and finally the cutover. Let's do a quick flyby of what happens in each one. Phase 1. Requirement planning. This is basically about getting everyone on the same page. The developers, the users, all the key players get together and map out the big picture goals. The key here is to not get lost in the weeds with tiny details, because that keeps things flexible for what's coming next. Okay, now this is where the real magic happens. Phase 2, user design, is the absolute heart and soul of RAD. This is that sculpting with clay part we just talked about. Developers whip up working prototypes. Users actually get to play with them and give instant feedback. And that cycle of build, test, refine can happen over and over, sometimes even daily, until it's perfect. So once everyone gives the prototype a big thumbs up, we move on to construction. And because the design has already been totally validated by the user, this phase is all about one thing: speed. Developers use powerful tools and pre-built code to turn that approved prototype into a real working product, and they do it fast. And finally, we hit Phase 4, cutover. This is launch day. The system gets deployed, users get trained on the final product, and the whole thing goes live. And because of that super fast, iterative process we just went through, the whole journey from idea to launch is just way shorter than it used to be. So, RAD sounds pretty amazing, right? It's fast, it's flexible, it's totally user-focused. But, and there's always a but, it's not a silver bullet. It doesn't work for every single project. So, let's get a balanced view here and really look at the pros and the cons. First, let's talk about the big wins. The main advantage is just incredible speed. And right alongside that speed is a level of flexibility that lets the project pivot and adapt on the fly, which is huge.
The most obvious benefit, of course, is you get stuff built way faster, which usually means it costs less. But the perks go deeper. Because users are so involved, the final product is often way higher quality. Plus, that constant feedback loop basically kills the risk of building the wrong thing, because you catch any mistakes early and often.
But it's a balancing act for sure. All that incredible speed and flexibility, well, it comes at a price. The downside of RAD isn't really a flaw in the idea itself, but it's about the very high demands it puts on the team and on the project as a whole.
The best way to think about it is that a RAD project needs a few really strong pillars to stand on. One pillar is a team of highly skilled developers who can build and rebuild things quickly. Another is having users who are actually available and committed to giving that constant feedback. And a third is having the right set of powerful tools. If any one of those pillars is shaky, the whole project can start to wobble. So, that brings us to the most practical question of all, right? When should you actually use RAD? Because at the end of the day, it's all about picking the right tool for the right job.
You can really see the difference when you put it side by side with that old Waterfall model. I mean, it's night and day. Where Waterfall is slow and moves in a straight line, RAD is fast and works in cycles. Where Waterfall is built on a mountain of documentation, RAD is built on working prototypes. It's a completely different philosophy, from the pace right down to the feedback.
So here's your green light checklist. Do you have a project with a crazy tight deadline? Are you building something where the user interface is everything? Or do you have requirements that you know are going to change? If you've got an enthusiastic client who wants to be involved, RAD is probably a fantastic choice.
And just as important, here's when you should probably hit the brakes. If you're building a massive, super complex system, or something that's safety critical, think flight control software, where you need meticulous documentation for every single change. Yeah, RAD is not the right fit. You need something way more structured.
And that leaves us with a final, really important thought. In the world we live in now, where business needs can change in a flash and getting to market first is everything, the core ideas of RAD, speed, flexibility, and a laser focus on the user, they just feel more important than ever. So I'll leave you with this question. As our world keeps getting faster, is RAD's need for speed going to become the new standard for everyone? Thanks for tuning in.